This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 818 for the week of Monday, May 20th, 2024. My name is Steven, and I am once again joined by my wonderful co-host,
Simba.
Oh,
me?
You got me.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I'm Greg, but we are also joined by
Simba. Yeah,
Simba.
He's here.
Yeah.
He's here. He's being quiet this time, but that's okay. It's SGS week. Don't skip this episode. It's not a repeat. We are back in for the second time in 3 weeks because for whatever reason, whatever quirk of his scheduling, Oda has taken another break right after the chapter following the Golden Week break. And so we get to do this again, and we only have one chapter to go over. So it probably will be slightly a bit of a slighter episode than the last one we did, but we'll find out. I'm not going to make any promises. So we can go on. I don't know anything new. Since we do have a quota of time wasting to do before we jump directly into the episode.
So even if it doesn't sound like it, I'm actually in excruciating pain.
Oh God.
I started personal training this week.
Oh.
And my trainer is actually a former student of mine.
That's cool.
His father opened a gym many moons ago, long before I was in Japan. And when I came here, he was one of my high school students. And now he's very grown up, has a family, 3 children, and
wow.
He opened a gym near our place where we live now in the quote unquote big city. And it's a complicated story. He opened it before Corona. During Corona, it closed, moved to another location, blah, blah, blah. I had some issues of my own, were difficult with health, so I was not able to attend the gym. And although they're not gone, I've largely overcome a lot of the biggest stopping blocks. And I was like, all right, I think it's time. I'm going to head back to the gym. And not only that, I'd like to do personal training. So I began that. And little did I know the hell that I was in for. So the week started with things called squats. And I had never done squats before because I'm really worried about the form. I'd always done weightlifting, by myself solo. And I didn't want to do anything that was going to mess me up too much. If I got even like the slightest thing wrong, if my butt was not out too far, my pinky was not lifted in the right direction.
Right.
And he had me doing squats. And so that was Monday. And Tuesday I was like, oh, you know what? This isn't too bad. I think I can handle this. And I even went to my other gym that day and did some upper body work. I was like, yeah, not bad. And then Wednesday came and I could not walk. And every class I had that day, I had to go up 3 flights of stairs and down 3 flights of stairs.
Oh God.
So, that was fun. And then yesterday, just last evening, went through the whole routine. I was like, all right, not too bad. We didn't have to do squats. And we finish off with something he says, and you'll have to excuse me. This is, using Japanese, so I'm not hearing everything exactly clearly, or, I'm interpreting things differently. Just because I'm listening to it in another language. And he's like, all right, we're going to finish off with Barbies. And I'm like, Barbies? That's hilarious. That's adorable. We're going to do Barbies. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, this is how it goes. And I was like, oh God, that looks horrible. And I was like, all right, it's Barbies. Okay. And I'm doing the thing. We do 3 sets of these things. And I'm dying by the end of it. And I'm just like, God, what the hell? And not even an hour ago, I wake up and my entire body is screaming in pain, and that's burpees, right?
Yes.
That's what it was, burpees, not Barbies. Okay.
Yeah, that's That's a military thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Burpees
So
and
that's
Barbies.
my story of strife. I think the last one was the expedition, but this is
Yeah.
burpees, not Barbies.
I've never done anything quite that intense, but I think if you've done any kind of working out, it's like, okay, the first 24 hours you might have a little muscle like numbness, but it's that 48 hours period where
It is.
Yeah, it just really kills you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing cardio. My wife is a long distance runner. And so that's kind of my, when I'm exercising, which I had not been over the pandemic, I'm sure that's some people that is a common thing. And it was only recently that she kind of roped me back into trying to run again. But it is timely here because she's a half marathon runner, and she has one tomorrow that she is doing, her second of the year. And it's one of those things like, marathons, half marathons, they always start them very early in the morning. And there are two kinds of races. So there's the kind where you start in one place and then you run, you either do a loop or you run out and then you turn back and retrace the route back to where you started, or, you start in one place and then you run and you end in another place. And this is the latter kind of race, which means you have a decision to make if you're taking your own transportation, which is, do I park at the starting area or do I park at the ending area? And we're going to go to the ending area. But what that means is they have a bunch of shuttle buses that will take you to the starting line.
Okay.
And that is, of course, it takes time to do that. So you have a certain window. And that window is, I think it's somewhere between like 4:30 and 5:15 or something like that. So yeah, we're probably getting up at like 3 a.m. Tomorrow, and not looking forward to that. But it's always exciting, and me, someday I keep trying to build up to doing more long distance running. Maybe one day I'll be up there too, and I can actually do that. But I don't have the lifetime of experience that she does.
Wow, good on you. Good on both of you. I do love to run.
Yeah,
I do actually about 5 kilometers on weekdays.
Nice. Yeah,
and that's been my routine for a long time. But long distance running, that's an entirely different game.
Yeah,
and I have major respect for that.
Yeah, I was getting some leg pain, so I've ceased activity for the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm feeling good now, so I'm eager to get back at it.
Cool.
In another week or so. All right, I think that's a good amount of warming up to do. I think we're ready to talk about just this one chapter today. That's all we've got to discuss. But I think there's some interesting tidbits to go over about it, and we do have some questions from our lovely listeners. I would be remiss if I did not point out, since Zach has been busily promoting it, that we do have another One Piece podcast live show in the loft at the City Winery in New York City. That is going to be Sunday, August 25th. I believe that is supposed to be around the New York Comic Con or Anime New York, NYC, one of those events. So hopefully there will be some folks, some cross-pollination there who are interested in hearing the One Piece podcast live. I don't believe that either of us will be there, but they have put together just about everybody else from the podcast is going to be there, it sounds like. So that is exciting. The tickets are available now, so just check out all the social media stuff to find the links for that. Without further ado, though, I think we should do a little manga recap. So yeah, we'll do a little music break here, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Steve Yurko.
And I'm Tara Sands.
Now available from Maji Media is our new podcast, 4Kids Flashback. 4Kids is the company who brought you the English dub of Pokemon in the late 90s and so many other shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Shaman King, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kirby, the infamous One Piece dub, and so many more.
We'll be talking to the people who worked at 4Kids. Actors, directors, writers, editors, producers, engineers, you get the point. And hopefully get the answers to questions both you and I have about the company.
I actually worked there as a voice actor on some of the shows.
And I was a kid watching the shows and remember way more than Tara does.
And thank God for that. Steve is actually a professional storyboard artist, which gives some really unique insights into anime and animation. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts. That's the number 4 Kids Flashback.
If you love anime and D&D, check out Warlock. It's the story of me, Nova Ravenwood, a young woman born without magic who forms a pact with a mysterious being for power. Set in a fantasy world of adventure, dragons, and powerful sorcerers, the story unfolds like an anime for your ears.
And don't forget about our muscular hunk of a classmate, me, Ren. Too bad this is audio only, otherwise you could see that I'm flexing my arms off over here.
Are you seriously interrupting the ad? You moron! Sorry, we'll get out of your way.
Wait, hang on. I haven't even told them about my amazing powers. I guess I should describe myself a little bit more first. First thing, I don't wear a shirt.
Thanks, Briar! Join the quest and listen to Warlock wherever you get your podcasts. Or visit warlockpod.com for more information.
This is the manga recap for chapter 1114, Wings of Icarus. And since this is all we have to talk about, and there's a little bit more than usual, I would say, in the sum up. I will break it down with my little summary here. So this is what we will be talking about. We see reactions around the world from Mocktown, Water 7, Impel Down, and Fishman Island to the topic of flooding. In his past recording, Vegapunk predicts a future worldwide earthquake with alarming accuracy. His insistence that this is not a natural phenomenon drives the 5 elders into a rage. We get to see the Mother Flame floating in a giant vat of liquid, while the giant robot no-sells the Navy bombardment happening on it. We get more worldwide reactions from the Celestial Dragons, Jaguar D. Sol, Mayor Boodle, and Amazon Lily. Edison briefly extends the cloud layer for the Sunny. And finally, Vegapunk reveals that Joy Boy was the very first man to be known as a pirate. So lots of stuff, although really just kind of one main thing from Vegapunk again. It seems like that's all we're getting is like one big drop each chapter. I'm not sure how much more we're going to get from it, but it certainly seems like we are not done with the message.
Yeah. He is, Oda is walking a very fine line where he is trying to make it make sense. Every week he's trying to give us pretty much one point to absorb, giving a little bit of time, showing us the reactions around the world. That, of course, buys him some time. And I think you can also tell from the page count that he's definitely trying to dole out things in small bits and pieces.
Yes.
This is not a criticism to say that he's drawing it out for the sake of drawing it out, but I do think he's drawing it out for the sake of making an exciting chapter each week.
Right.
With a start, middle, and end, with a single point that he wants to address. In terms of that, like how he's actually accomplishing that job, I think he's doing a magnificent job in giving us one point to kind of pick our our jaws off the floor,
Right.
And absorb. In addition to revisiting our cast of characters, who I have long predicted will be taking the stage by the end of the story, the entire cast of the story, and I think he's doing quite well. However, when you do get to the like, all right, but what is it? What does it mean?
Right.
When you get to that aspect of
Yeah.
it, it can be a little bit frustrating.
Right. Yeah, we haven't really gotten to like I don't know the call of action phase of this message of like, okay, what do you expect us to do about this, Dr. Vegapunk? Like what does this mean for us, aside from just these sort of random, seemingly unconnected facts, but we're getting there, I'm sure.
Yep. It's not a major complaint, but it is certainly accentuated by the breaks. It feels a little bit like you're waiting a little bit longer.
Right.
That's not a complaint. I do enjoy that Oda gets to enjoy his life. That's always cool, right? But it is a little bit of like, all right, but, and I'm waiting for, like you said, the call to action, the let's move kind of moment of all of this. And I think that's also because we're all very excited to head over to Elbaf.
Exactly.
And we've been excited for that for a long time. It's not very often that at the story climax of the arc that we already have a very solid idea of where we're going. And we've been at this point for quite some time now where we're like, are we going to Elbaf? Oh yeah, we're definitely going to Elbaf. But the story just keeps reaching like higher and higher points in terms of surprise. So it's kind of a unique arc, I guess, in that respect, because One Piece, one of its biggest, not faults, but one of the biggest points from critics that I agree with is that every arc is the same, and it kind of is. You do have your Zoes and you do have your other arcs that play out a little bit differently, of course, but every large arc is the same. And Egghead has turned out to be a larger arc. I don't know how long we've been here. It's more than a year, probably a year and a half. I think we've been here.
Yeah, I mean it's there have been more breaks than ever, so it is harder to judge the length of material, and some of these chapters are shorter and so on. So it certainly feels like it's been a while that we've been here.
So I'm not trying to be a wet blanket here, but just to kind of put in perspective my feelings on it. Having read the previous arcs, it's very interesting, but I'm also going week to week. Okay, but I think that's how I'm finishing each chapter. But it is exciting, and I am very envious of anybody who gets to read this all in one go.
Oh yeah,
in the future. Oh my God, good for them.
Yeah. All right. Were there any particular tidbits or things? I do have a few points of interest to bring up, unless you have certain points to discuss.
I may find them as we go along, but the first thing I actually do want to ask you has zero to do with the contents of the chapter itself, and more to do with, do you now have a better idea of what the hell Yamato is up to?
Yes, I mean certainly this one with the nice map and everything, and the picture of the shrine. It does put it into perspective. Now, obviously, I had already put together that with the Daison, the surrogate pilgrimage, as I translated it. I knew that there was going to be some amount of travel, and obviously that is part of Oden's story, so that's what you would expect Yamato to be doing. But I didn't know how it was going to fit in, and so this is kind of a nice a nice way to wrap that up. I still don't know what the koinari is, the golden inari, or perhaps golden fox. Maybe we'll see some more about that. That could be like, oh, this is what the the local Shinto style kami, the deity, is in Wano.
Is that the sword's name, perhaps?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably need to address, because I think I talked about this on the podcast itself, but like I think I translated it as Golden Harvest, just because there was no context of what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, but that's a thought. That's interesting. Because I guess we don't. Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask about which sword is which, and whatnot. But
well, this is Yasuie's, right?
Yasuie's sword, you presume?
Yeah,
because,
and I don't think we ever got a name for it. So I think
maybe not. Yeah,
I think that's what he might be going for, because he's taking it all around the country, right? To each, I'm just gonna call them prefectures.
Yeah,
each prefecture, and the X would be what?
That's Hakumai. That's so that's where the shrine is, and I guess well, if you're gonna go 3/4 of the way around the lap, you might as well finish it with the last one, and that's why it continues on and back to the capital.
Be enshrined in Hakumai?
Yes, because that's what the Enma-do, the shrine, Enma shrine,
right,
is where they will be placing the katana.
I'm just curious. Yeah, I guess like you said, just I guess since we went all the way around the prefectures, we'll just go through the rest of them. But doesn't it? I don't know. If you don't have the sword, not taking you through the last
yes, is it still a pilgrimage at that point?
I don't know. Or maybe it. Maybe. I think will it get worked into something new? No, I don't think they'd do that. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is why I'm over the moon with this particular cover story, is because it is the simplest answer to one of the biggest question marks that was in my head. Was it did not seem by the latter half of Wano that we were going to get the green, the beautiful, the bountiful Wano that I think Oda wanted to show us. We had the kind of like the wasteland
Wano.
Right. And we never got to see how Oda really wanted to draw it. And I was just like, how are we going to finish the arc if we don't get to see it? Because life has to come back. And the moment that the, I'm going to forget his name, Aragaki or Arakami,
was it Aramaki?
Green Bull, Aramaki. The second that he came, I was like, oh, there is a possibility for him to like instantly get life growing back. But that didn't obviously turn out that way at all. So I was like, okay, well then how does Oda show us a beautiful Wano? Because that seems like his goal, right? Like he wants to draw the quintessential, his manga version of beautiful Japan.
Right.
And he kind of did it in the flower capital, but that's because the flower capital is the flower capital. It's like the last bastion of lush greenery in the country. So how does he do that? And I was trying to figure out, do we spend some time here? Do the Straw Hats hide out here for some time? Or do they have to immediately go away? And that was, I even did some of my YouTube broadcasts were almost entirely focused on that point, is how does it turn out by the end of the arc? And it's such a simple answer, is that he shows us beautiful Wano through a cover story, Dadoi.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with this development. Great stuff.
It's cool. I like it.
All right. So sorry to spend a lot of time on that, but this is just like the culmination of something I've been wondering for like the past 3 years.
Yeah, it helped me too, just as the guy who has to present the text of these covers of like what are we doing here? What is going on? And I think this is probably about the most information he can possibly fit on a non-dialogue page to try to provide context for what's going on.
He used to do more stuff like this, and it was fun in the cover stories. This is kind of groovy to get this simple storytelling in a single panel that gives you multiple bubbles. Complex ideas.
Yeah.
I like it. Also, that like he does this weird thing where like, I don't know why they're talking softly here, because he does this thing where people talk softly, but they use the thought bubbles, and he intentionally does it. Yeah.
I don't. Well, I don't know if that's him talk. I think that's probably like, I don't know, the mental image maybe that. But he could have done the traditional bubble tales as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyway, yeah, that's nerdy me going over that. But the chapter itself, seeing the mother flame is cool. Oh, something I didn't get. This did not. We got Doflamingo here,
right?
And he's laughing about like, oh, if Impel Down gets flooded, you jerks have to take care of us. Then what are you gonna do? Doflamingo, you are covered in water. Do you mean like if the top of
yeah,
it...
I think that's the implication, is that the water goes in the entrance or whatever.
Okay. All right. So they have no safety precautions for that. That's hilarious. Like it's just an entrance and the water will just flow down.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. That it's gonna get real. It's gonna get real dank and musty down there.
Level 6, gross.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's an interesting setup because that shows possible foreshadowing for another escape, like not even an escape, but like breakout, mass breakout. That would be chaos. Now,
I have so here's one of my things that I was gonna talk about with you, and maybe you noticed this, maybe you didn't, because it's a relatively insignificant detail, but this is going to tie into some like, Japanese lessons, Japanese 101.
Okay.
With Doflamingo and Magellan describes the 1 meter rise of the sea using the word senjutsu, which is previous day. And then 2 pages later, we see Charlotte Smoothie in Mont d'Or in some, undetermined area. There's no background. And she says, are they talking about, is Vegapunk talking about the earthquake that happened today? Do you think the discrepancy there, because the earthquake is what caused the 1 meter sea rise. Do you think that is an intentional thing where Oda, because he's been showing us the different times of day in these different settings, so he has been intentionally depicting, the worldwide fact of this, that some people are at night, some people are in day, or do you think that this is like a statistical fuck up? They're going to change one of them to the other when they go to volume. Did you notice this? Did you think about this at all?
So, okay. First of all, full disclosure, I have not mapped out the timing of this.
Right.
I have not had to look at the series in depth for quite some time because I'm on a little bit of a sabbatical I was on a sabbatical from first of all, the podcast, which allowed me to just kind of read chapters at my own pace for a bit. But in addition to that, my column has also been on break because I'm doing a kind of a project there. And so I've not had to really look at a chapter and look at timelines. But when I read this, I was like, wait a minute, what? Hold on, what do you mean today? And I was like, wait, but when was the earthquake exactly, said as having occurred? It was X number of days after the Lelucia incident, right?
Right.
And when did it actually occur? Because I do not remember.
Well, it was
at Egghead?
Yeah, well, it was depicted in the middle of Egghead. I believe it was like chapter 1089 or something around there. So it was a while ago, but it was still very much in the middle, which would suggest, but I don't remember if it was in a bit of it might have been in a mini flashback there. So yeah, I mean, certainly you didn't see everybody reacting to it on Egghead. So I don't think it was real time.
All right. So that's kind of what I thought. I would prefer to kind of put my foot in the ground on this one if I had an exact idea of when it was, and if I could pinpoint at exactly what time in the Straw Hats adventure that should have been. And normally I'm on that, but I'm not right now. So sorry, I have failed. But that being said, back to the point. When I read this, I read that Senjutsu and I was like, okay, other day. And then I got down to what Smoothie says, and I was just like, wait, what? Huh? And I did not understand why there was this difference there. Especially because if, we're talking about the fact that if it was fewer than 24 hours ago from when it was first introduced to us,
right?
Then why is he saying Senjutsu as opposed to Kino?
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Because this is what I wanted to talk about. Because this term Senjutsu it's a very common word. Like, it's one of those like everyday vocabulary. You could easily, on any given day, either use it or hear it, in Japanese. It's a very commonplace word. But it means, it's like, to translate the kanji, it means previous day. But notice, I did not say the previous day or a previous day, because it can be either. It's just a previous day. So it could be yesterday, or it could be, there's probably some range. It's probably like within 2 weeks or something like that, where if you go beyond a certain range, then you probably wouldn't use that word anymore. But it is a very uncertain term. So the way that he used that word, like, if you didn't know this context, or if you didn't have Smoothie's, line elsewhere, you might think like he could be talking about 3 days ago or 4 days ago. And that would be totally, natural, interpretation of the line. And so it's this very baffling thing, because in English, we really want to say either yesterday or the other day. But if you say the other day, it probably doesn't mean yesterday, because then you would just say yesterday. So it's one of those very simple, very commonplace words that is kind of the bane of my existence whenever I have to deal with it, and I don't know for sure like what the full context of the time frame is. So that's what made it kind of interesting to me, is trying to puzzle that out.
I would have to just venture a guess that it's his personality, because it is a more like this is a term I use with my friends, but I think you'll get it. It's a glasses push term, like a shaking. You push your anime, push your glasses up. Senjutsu no, as opposed to Kino no. Kino sounds more not colloquial, but it just sounds more familiar. Whereas Senjutsu sounds more particular, job oriented. I don't know. It doesn't sound particularly nerdy, but it just sounds colder.
Yeah, there's a certain formality to it, for sure.
And
it would be funny. It would be funny too if just because they're underwater in this thing, it's like he doesn't really keep track of the days.
He's in the toilet too long.
Yeah. That'd be a very funny answer.
But I do think that this does have to do with the point that you brought up if it's not just a mistake, then I do think that it has to do with how the world turns.
Right.
That would seem to be the only explanation. Now, from our perspective, we don't know, right, how the world turns. We don't know the rising and setting of the sun. We assume that it is the same as ours. We know that they have a almost identical calendar to ours.
Right.
In terms of not only days per month, but also the months. Oda could retcon that to say that all the birthdays and things are like, I don't know. based on our calendar. He could say that if he wanted to. Or he could say that they actually have more months and just nobody we've met has a birthday in the 13th month. he could do all, those are all options for him if he wanted.
Right.
But based on the evidence we have, they have an identical calendar to us. So it's probably safe to assume that he also, just for simplicity, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Probably. But from our perspective, going around the world, it would be in order that Impel Down is, quote unquote, earlier in a 24-hour period than further along the Grand Line in the second half of the Grand Line, Whole Cake Island. I think that's where they are they not? No, wait, we don't know that they're on Whole Cake Island. They could be anywhere, right?
Yeah.
They could be on board the ship as far as we know. Because we don't know their last location, but it should be somewhere in the realm of somewhere between Whole Cake Island and Elbaf. It should be somewhere in between there, right? Theoretically. And from our perspective, that is further along the Grand Line. So for them, it might have occurred in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, in the morning hours. So let's say like 1 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
It could have occurred for them there, whereas that would have been earlier for Impel Down.
Right. Like it would have been 9 p.m. for them or something, and now it's the next day. Yeah.
Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. But times aside, that's the point I'm trying to make. Is it could have been earlier for them, and then the day has switched over. So. No, wait, that doesn't make sense. It was the opposite. So our Kyo. No. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, math.
It's tricky.
We were just talking about this in class. As the time difference between New Jersey and Japan.
We have to do this just to record these conversations. We have to figure out, okay, wait, I'm going to get up at this hour, and then that's what time your time? Like, okay, all right, we got it.
Yes.
We got it figured out.
Going into every time. And Steven is awesome because every time he always specifically asks me, like, what time your time? So he does all of that math. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. And let's see. Oh man, didn't dude Alex, I think, said something about like, well, I wonder what people are going to think about Long Ring Long Land now. And the next freaking week, we get a shot of our buddy here, and Shelley, and I think his granddaughter, right? That's supposed to probably his granddaughter. On the island, so very cool with their sinking and raising and sinking and raising.
Yeah, I guess it's not quite enough to reach the land level there, but it looks pretty. The water looks pretty high there.
Yeah, I mean he's on stilts in it, right? And those are some pretty big stilts. So
yeah. I don't know. You got anything before the Mother Flame, or should we?
The protection of Robin is pretty baller.
That is cool. Yeah. Kind of carry over from the previous chapter.
Yeah. Good for them. Like to see that. And yeah, that's about it. Up to the Mother Flame. Cool stuff. I mean, I'm sure we can go through each Marine and figure out who each Marine was or is, but not this time. I'm just enjoying the story.
And I mean as for the Mother Flame itself, like obviously it's like, okay, the imagery of the flame seemingly burning inside of a vat of liquid is very cool and striking. I don't know. I mean, other than that, it just kind of looks like, like a pretty potent fuel source. I wonder. So when they tested out the Death Star laser previously, I suppose that like they probably removed a little chunk of this and then used that to power the laser, but it's like a finite, a finite resource. Is that how you interpreted that?
I wonder if it's finite, or if does it regenerate? Is that the point of it being, or is it contained? Is it entirely contained? Or are they trying to do something to it? Because his point was like, I don't understand why he was trying to find this infinite resource of fire, if they have it here. Now, is this the last bit remaining of an ancient part of Joy Boy? Is this Joy Boy? Is this all that remains of Joy Boy? But then if that's the case, then like why? Well, that would help explain the fruit, right? Because we don't know if the fruit is. I think is it in this chapter where they say it, or something like it doesn't matter whether the god existed or not, as we believe in the god, so it will appear, and if this was an actual part of a god, of a quote unquote god, then that would help explain that yes, it did exist at one point. There was, and that's what the devil fruit is based on. Because it can't be a part of Joy Boy if Joy Boy was merely a devil fruit, since that would indicate that part of the devil fruit is still active, which it can't be if someone else has eaten it, at least as far as we know.
Right.
So there is that. Also, before I go any deeper in that, and I don't know if I can, sounding logical, because there's so many ifs at this point.
Yeah.
Did you have anything interesting that you noticed about just some of the writing on the tank here?
Yeah, I did want to talk about that because I know there were questions, and I was not on the last week's regular podcast episode. The fairly obvious one for me is the A and mu.
Yeah.
And people picked up on that pretty quick, which is that and in the Japanese language, and is usually to. So you have atomu, or atom, or it could be the English word atom, or it could be also a reference to, of course, Osamu Tezuka's Tetsuwan Atomu. There's
that's cute,
different layers,
but I don't buy it.
You don't buy that one?
I don't buy it. Here's more along the line what I think. And if he wanted to go exactly this route, then I think he would have written it exactly. But it still makes some semblance of sense. What about the, not Shishi Odoshi, what are they called? Komainu. At the entrance to shrines. You have one on the right and one on the left.
Yes.
And one has the mouth open and one has the mouth closed. Mm-hmm. And it's and
yeah.
And basically and is like saying alpha and omega.
That's right.
The beginning and the end and everything in between. And mu. And mu literally meaning here could literally mean nothing. So it would be everything and nothing. You've also got Imu, of course, and Imu has several layers, as we've long gone into with as you taught me with the Kami and
the
Hotoke.
Right.
Hotoke, yeah. So you also have that idea, that angle of something to do with Mu, and that's it for me on that one. My idea is, maybe it's atomu, or maybe it's a and mu. So
right, yeah. The one thing too you always have to remember is like when he does this stuff, it's always like Easter egg level things. Like it is almost never something that is actually like a crucial plot detail. I think the only times that he has done this sort of like putting like symbol or letters or numbers on something in a way that actually is kind of meaningful that you can track is like the battle Frankies and the zombies in Thriller Bark, where there was like a pattern to, okay, well, if they're this number, then they're this type of zombie. But all of the sort of random text that he puts on things, you always have to kind of the first guess is always like, okay, is this one of those Japanese numerology things where it says a little hidden message that is like a sort of clever, it's a different derivation of like the silly t-shirt jokes.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't necessarily have like, here's the answer, here's the secret that Oda hid right in front of our faces. The S108 is another one.
That is
this one is, yeah.
I love that number, if you can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah, 108, if you if you're Asian just in general, you probably know the significance of 108 just because it's all over what do they call them? The dharmic religions, basically any of the Hinduism or Buddhism, anything that came out of India. 108 is always a big thing, and we've seen that in One Piece itself. Zoro's canon, which is a pun based on Bonno, which is worldly temptations, and that's where the 108 really represents, is all of the different
the sins of the human sin, sins of the human world.
Yes,
desires.
Yes, the things that prevent you from achieving nirvana, basically, and breaking the cycle. And
that I do think is intentional on this one. Because we know that Oda is tuned into that. We don't necessarily know that he drew that. But
right.
He would probably have had input as to, what kind of details go on to this. And depending on the origin of this and who built this and how they view the origin of this, it could very well be that they're saying that these are the sins of man that are in here.
It could be. There's another. So the 108 comes from, there's like a little sort of calculation that goes on because it's the product of there's like 6 senses.
36.
Yeah. So there's 6 senses, and then there's like past, present, and future lives, and it can be like positive, negative, or neutral, and then there's pure and dirty or impure, and like each combination of those, whether it's A, B, or C, it totals up to 108 different permutations, which is how they get there. I did see there was I looked it up. I basically put S108 into Twitter just to see.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Is there something here that other people have? And there was one interesting thing, and we got asked about this before, and I don't think either of us was really familiar. But there was one Japanese theorist, commentator, who posited, he started with the S, so esu. And, he's trying to work out, okay, what's the word joke here? How does this go together? And he looked at the 10, 1, 0, and so he turned that into te. And then with the 8, you can do that as, there's a couple different options that you can represent with the number 8. But one of them is, hachi is the regular number, ha or ba. And so he said Esteban, and that Esteban is apparently the name of the main character of that 80s show, the Cities of Gold thing that everybody was talking about. That supposedly, some people theorize is like a big inspiration on Oda's backstory, and they think that has like all the secrets to, what the plot is going to be. Which, I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but that is an interesting way to interpret this little string of text at the top here. How does that strike you, hearing that for first time here?
What did he say? Freddie Mercury? If you see it, darling, it's there.
Yeah, it could be nothing, but that's an interesting. It's an interesting way to tweak the text to find something that may or may not be there.
Art is art.
Yeah. Here, I'll close this topic out with this, just as a reminder of the danger of overthinking or over theorizing. Is that, do you know what else the number 108 is? Specifically, what it is the sum of what numbers?
Oh.
You know it? You know it?
I absolutely do. Yeah. Yeah. And I can tell you those numbers. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
That's right. Yes, it's the lost numbers.
Yep. Yes. And that's on purpose, because what was it known as? The what initiative?
Right, the Dharma Initiative.
The Dharma Initiative. Yep.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad we're the same age. I will say, I think a lot of what we can gather about what to say about this in the future, in terms of theorization and tying things together, is what color is that flame? I think everybody out there right now would love to know what color will this be.
Yeah.
If we know that, then we can draw a lot of conclusions, which is why he's super zootery for having black and white for the manga.
That's right. Yeah, I think the real question would be, are we going to find out what that color is, either through context or through, like a volume cover or something?
Yeah.
Before they have to animate it in the anime and show us, what it is, because sometimes we don't get that before it shows up on TV.
I'm just happy that this is I don't know, the 5th Akira vault scene from the arc. So yeah. I'm all in. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't get enough of it in Punk Hazard, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The Saul reveal, no surprises there. That's already
Saul reveal. Yep.
It's already been.
I mean, I was more happy to see that than anything.
Yeah.
I do like, God, those mountains are enormous. They're huge. He's looking way better than I thought he would. I mean, we haven't seen his face, obviously,
we haven't seen his face,
but I figured he'd still be maybe all in bandages or something, or what did his whole body look like? That was interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll have like ice scars or something.
Yeah.
That would at least make the reveal, since we obviously know. I mean, we knew already, but not now that he's been openly shown, maybe that's one last little surprise that he can show us, is he looks all gnarly now or something.
In Orange Town, I don't know that we've seen this view of the town before.
Right.
This particular building. Is that a straw hat that they've erected? Okay,
so I didn't realize that the first time. I'm just looking at the dialogue, and I think I noticed the straw hat on the Shushu fountain behind Boodle before I actually noticed the straw hat on the building in the establishing shot.
Okay, wow, good on you. But that's cool. That's kind of neat. It's kind of like Luffy never called it his Nawabari or anything, his territory, but
right.
It's kind of like them declaring that for themselves.
Yeah.
Also, and this is not I'm so keen at finding this. It's just like I thought it was super adorable. The Shushu Dendemushi.
Yeah.
That's really cute for
Yeah,
no
it is.
particular reason.
Mm-hmm.
Do love that. I just God, what was her name? Like Joanna? I forget her name. The Amazon Lily character, Margaret. Is that what
Margaret
it was?
was the
Margaret.
she's one of the in the
It's
foreground.
Margaret. Remember when she first appeared and people were like, Margaret, new Nakama.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She's the new crew member.
I was all for it,
Yeah.
but
Oh God,
no.
good times. That's over 10 years, maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Not that long, but jeez. And yeah, I don't know that there's much else here other than. Okay, yes, that's what I was interested in. The fact that Luffy hurts his hand here is very cool. I like that. I like that he can't just trounce these characters. It gives them something to aspire to. And it shows that they know they still can't, there's still something above them. Because, my whole thing ever since Kaido has been like, you just defeated the strongest known creature in the world.
Right.
So what do
What
you
now?
do now?
Yeah.
Seeing a stopping block is nice, finally. Something that can harm him. That sounds really sadistic of me, but sorry, I want that for my interesting shonen action adventure story.
Yes. I mean, I think that's. I think when Gear 5 was first introduced, I think you had this big wave of like, oh man, this is so exciting. But as it appears again and again, I think you do see a larger and larger contingent of people saying like, okay, but we need to have like there need to be some stakes here. It can't just be fun time 100% of the time, or else we are going to lose. Like everybody wants the answers and they want to see the exciting stuff, but like, are you going to undercut all of the excitement if we learn that there are never any stakes for Luffy?
Right.
So yeah, it is important to show stuff like this.
All right. And for me, I think that's the chapter. I think we have spent exactly an hour talking about it. All right. Good for us.
No final thoughts about the first Pirate of the Sea?
I mean, it's Steven, what is the growing trend? What have I been saying? Okay, or okay,
Right.
but
Sure.
like cool information, but what do we do with it at this point? It's just, I mean, like that. All right, so he was the first pirate, cool, but what did that mean for the world? Like the fact calling him a pirate and the fact that Luffy is a pirate, I don't know, that doesn't I'm sure there are reactors out there who are whoa, but for me it's like, all right, okay, so Luffy has chosen to be a pirate and this character was a pirate.
It seemed like
what does that tell me?
Yeah, to me, I mostly just took it as like, this is kind of like a meta commentary from Oda, like basically placing brackets around like this is this special relationship that this series has with the word pirate, like sort of starts and ends with, okay, here's this legendary figure, and that's kind of how Luffy is spiritually aligned with this this concept. And yes, we have lots of regular old fashioned stealing and looting and pillaging type of pirates, but this sort of provides the start point for our current end point of like, this is the special thing that this series is kind of getting to is what Oda's definition of a pirate is.
And you know what? Maybe because I sound so negative, and I'm not that negative, but also I'm not that jaded, but also I guess why it leaves a poor taste in my mouth is because I immediately finished the chapter and was like, this only makes a stronger case for Luffy being chosen one.
Right. That is true.
And I still don't see him that way, but it makes a stronger case for it. And that's not the greatest thing in the world to have for your character. We know that he has gotten to this point by his own effort. But if it turns out that like he's the reincarnation, I'm just not so happy with that. However, I will say there is one cool aspect about how Vegapunk phrases this that does give us a bigger idea of the universe, and that is he does specifically say "Kono umi de hajimete kaizoku," which infers that, or could infer that, depending on how you read it, because it's just a kind of flowery way to refer to this place, our planet, etc. But it suggests that there are other umis, other seas out there. What kind of seas? Yes, and that kind of comes back to me theorizing about the elder stars. One of the very first ideas we had about the elder stars was, were they pirates? Right? Were they like the Luffy and crew, in the old days? Were they like Luffy and crew in the old days? And I think I even mentioned this before, is did they come from another planet? Are they aliens? Are they actually from outside the planet? Like, are they not just elder stars in names? Are they actually from other planets? And is that where they're trying to get or return to? Because they need this quote unquote infinite energy source. So kono umi de hajimete. Okay, it doesn't say like the first ever pirate. So,
yes, yeah.
Was the world subjected to piracy, and did they fight back through piracy?
And of course the other side of that is that yes, they could just be his, Oda just kind of filling space, adding a little emphasis or a little floweriness to the statement, so that it's not just over in a single bubble, just to kind of punctuate it, but it also does leave open that interpretation, which is it's fun that he has not, like if that does not turn out to be the case, if it is a much more terrestrial story in the end, it's at least fun that at this point he has not like categorically removed that possibility.
Yeah.
So we get to talk about it in this way.
I don't know. After bringing in Impel Downs, not filling up the hole, number one, and number two, having an eternal daylight thing.
Daylight, yeah.
Which could have entirely, just been like he didn't want to draw night scenes. I mean, that could have entirely been his reason, but to actually bring that back and have that probably be related to this, to the Mother Flame.
Yeah.
Because he didn't need to do that. People now can look at it and say, well, it all ties in. Yes, it does. Back when we were reading it, One Piece wasn't anywhere near that level of complexity of the world, and it could have just been silliness. It's very easy to read the series at once and look back at it like that, but we're talking years where there were aspects of the series that were just silly to be silly and have turned out to actually be plot points, and sometimes, yes, still it's just silly to be silly. But I do agree with Steven in that it's clever that he can just have said something in a flowery way here, or it could actually be Vegapunk knows more about the universe than he's saying here.
Indeed. All right, I think we have covered that pretty thoroughly now. Gotten a lot of stuff off our chest. We do have a selection of questions from folks.
All right.
So why don't we move on to our question and answer section? And we are back. And we are going to read some questions from the fine folks who sent them in. We will start, as always, with our SGS Dispiece, which is on Discord in our Patreon section for patrons of the podcast. And we will start here with a Revoid Century patch. It's a tough one. It says, "Hey there, SGS. This is a question for Simba. Who's a cute kitty? Is it you? Are you the best little cat? Do you want some scritches?" Well, as it happens today, I pulled Simba's little perch bed over to be within arm's reach of myself. So actually, I can give him some scritches right now. If only this was on video.
Ina.
He's been very good. Our next question from somebody who his name is simply, and my name is Alex, who says, first time caller, etc., etc. This is our very own Alex, of course, who says, regarding the mystery of the sea level rising after Lelucia's fate, maybe it's causing a knock-up stream somewhere to malfunction, sort of like stopping a drain and water spouting out elsewhere, or Peeply Lulu's hair. I'm no plumbing expert, but there's my theory. Thoughts? This is a good one. I know we talked about the water stuff, but did we actually mention the knock-up stream as like the pressure valve on the other end? Because that's pretty good.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Is what, because I guess he gave a pseudoscience explanation
Yes, he
for
did.
it at the time.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a quote unquote naturally occurring phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
But could it be related to, because I think is the Earth, first we don't know whether the Earth is sinking or whether it's being flooded, right? There's some combination of that.
Right. Yeah, that's not clear.
So that would depend on that. Now, if it's being flooded, then does that mean, is water flowing in? Is it building up somewhere and then bursting up? I would say no, because of the frequency with which it occurs, or is something like the knock-up stream, is that quote unquote giving the Earth time?
Right.
Is that naturally occurring phenomenon, like releasing? Is it a release valve?
Yeah, having opened another, unfillable hole, does that mean that there's a knock-up stream now that is just permanently on? It's just a giant spout of water that never goes away.
No, it shouldn't be one that never goes away.
Yeah.
It should just theoretically, is there another spot? And I'm trying to think of like some, comedy where you stick your finger in a hole and the water stops,
right,
and it bursts out somewhere else. It's like, is there another knock-up stream that's occurring somewhere? Yeah. That is entirely possible. But again, it's how much. I can't imagine Oda having that, like the specific idea of the knock-up stream being related to what's going on in the world, because it's too convenient to what he needed in the plot at the time.
Yeah.
And if I'm proven wrong, amazing. But I mean, like, I've seen too much of the man behind the curtain, so I know, from week to week what is like, yeah, I have no idea what's going on there.
Right.
So it's hard for me to think that he could have had that specific idea in his mind at the time. But I do think it's something that he can not retcon, but puzzle piece into the story to make sense that way.
Right.
And if he does it, first of all, bravo. And if he had it in his mind the entire time, I don't know. Best author ever.
Yeah. There's a certain level of dementedness to, to have that many secret, foreshadowing things. The number that he definitely does have is already, astonishing enough. But, it's hard to believe that stuff like that would have been planned. Who knows, though? We will move on to Felix Cutler, who says, "Hey SGS, I assumed that no celestial dragon knows about Imu and the Void Century. All they know is that the D's are trouble, as Corazon tells Law. Am I wrong? Do more people know about the Void Century, like Sengoku, Akainu, and Shanks' dad and potential brother?" Yeah, we didn't talk.
This is a very interesting question.
Yeah, we didn't touch on this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we see in this chapter canonically that at the very least, Shalria does not know what the Void Century is. You know, she's like, "What is that?"
Yeah. If did I ever go into my tinfoil hat theory? I don't know if I ever publicly stated this or not, or if it's something I said at work. How the celestial dragons might just be fodder for breeding experiments. Did I get into that here?
I don't recall.
Okay,
this,
that might
no.
have been something I said at work.
Yeah.
Because back when we had an office that I shared with others, we do not this year. We would talk about One Piece quite a bit, and one of my ideas was that, you know how we have all these instances of like so-called illegitimate children, because like we know that they take on multiple wives, right? They take on the quote-unquote slave wives.
Yes.
And that's how, you know, people like, unfortunately, Bonnie are born to people like Jenny. Are all of these individuals being raised for the celestial dragons and experiments? In other words, is Bonnie the result of something that they're trying to create in humans? This is back with the blue scale, right? I swear we talked about this. Is were they trying to make something that can be born with devil fruits? Were they trying to make human that can ignore devil fruits, or something that can take on multiple devil fruits? And basically, the Tenryubito, are they just cattle? Are they just cattle for Imu?
Yeah.
And that is to say the celestial dragons as well, because they do have that science, you know, aspect to them. And we know that Bonnie was subjected to horrible experiments that Vegapunk had nothing to do with, right? As far as I know, because I don't think he had anything to do with like the transmission of the blue scale disease.
Yeah, that's right. That was the Five Elders, wasn't it?
That should have been Saturn. He should have been responsible for that. So these assholes living up there, I think they're just basically breeding grounds for breeding tools for Imu and the elders. That's basically all they do. Is they're just brought people to breed, and they get to experiment on them. And that Bonnie is just, you know, one small slice of what that was. To what ends they're trying to do the breeding, I had a bunch of ideas at the time, and I think those they would still fit. But I think a lot of it has to do with like, can we create bodies that can take on multiple devil fruits? Can we create people that are infused with devil fruits from birth, or those so-called abilities from birth? Right. So my idea has long been that the celestial dragons themselves, they're clueless to even why they're there. They probably are being fed ideas from the Elder Stars why they should be there. I even questioned for a long time myself, are the Elder Stars even celestial dragons? And I think I brought that up with you before, and I got called out a couple times. People are like, of course they are. They're listed as it in such and such. But are they? Are they the same thing?
Right. I mean, they might be considered like due to their titles or their rank or whatever, they might have the privileges of them. But like, are they literally descendants of the 20 kingdoms, or were they the original, you know, some of the original 20 monarchs or something like that? That's not clear. And the more that we see of them and all this weird, you know, freaky shit that they can do, the less likely that seems.
Yeah. And this chapter was very good in bringing up that point, which I've had for a long time. It's just like, okay, so they say like, don't let him talk. Don't let him talk. It doesn't suggest that they know what he's going to talk about. And then, like you said, Stephen,
right?
She comes up with the Void Century. What the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, wait, what? You are asking what the Void Century is? Aren't you the assholes who are supposed to know what that is?
Right. So they do definitely come off, not that it's outside of Shalria, you could still, certainly argue that others of the rank and file celestial dragons might know this stuff. But the impression that this scene gives you is that they're just angry that like he is proposing to uncover some truth that, no, we're the ones who say what truth is, like, shut this guy up. He's not supposed to have this power over us or whatever.
Yeah.
And that they don't seem to be specifically, reacting to the things he's actually saying. So that's an interesting thing to look at.
Good question.
Going forward. Yeah. Our next one is from King Doji, who I think we did kind of cover this one. He says, hello, superb guest speakers. Did either of you notice the A and Mu in 1114? And do you think it's supposed to be Atomu or Atom, like a reference to the atomic bomb, similar to what Zach was saying last week? If not, what is it? Credit to Inferno in the Discord. Might not have been the one to come up with it, but the first one I saw saying it. So yeah, we definitely did. We covered that pretty well. I think it seems likely that regardless of which way you slice it, it's, it seems very strongly hinted that it is, probably a sort of Oppenheimer-esque, reference to the power of everything, the power beyond mankind, being stored here. And, I think that, that seems to line up with that. Next is Professional Poyo, who says, howdy, SGS. I've been thinking about new One Piece anime being made specifically regarding the voice actor. So they're talking about the One Piece, which was announced. Whether we're talking sub or dub, do you think Wit Studio will keep the same recognizable voice actors we know, or should they take the risk of finding new talent? Like, Mayumi Tanaka is undoubtedly the GOAT, but part of me feels bad to have a 69-year-old woman who has voiced Luffy for over 25 years to be asked, okay, now do it all over again. The situation is even more tricky when factoring in that the current anime is still going. I'm conflicted.
Interesting question.
Yes. I feel like this is like the question, honestly, for me, is how do you handle the voices?
So, full disclosure, I have no inside information on this, aside from the fact that, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast, but aside from the fact that I was there when this idea was pitched to Oda years ago. I was at the table with him, and he was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, let's do it. ... But what do we do about the voice actors?
That's what he said.
And so that was the kind of my big link to it. I heard that kind of discourse going on. But I do not have any information on this. So this is all pure speculation, fan speculation. But I would say that since Mayumi Tanaka did the teaser spot for it,
right?
That gives us one of two things. Either A, she is obviously going to continue on as Luffy, or B, she is the narrator. That could also be a possibility.
Yeah.
While we you also have to consider that she is doing it all over again, because she is the voice of the dub for the live action. So she's already doing it all over again. So this would not be the first time that she's doing it all over again, or for Netflix. So there is that. In Japan, it's whether that studio wants to pay Aoni Productions for the voice actors, because that's unfortunately the first question you have to ask is not would they be good for it, or can they afford those voice actors and actresses, because I'm sure they catch quite a pretty penny for the one of the largest and longest running anime in the world.
Yeah.
Other than would they be good for it, and your point of, I think, sympathy with her is, this poor lady doing this time and time and again.
Yeah.
As long as she's getting paid and she likes doing it, I don't think she'll have any complaints about it, even if she has to be wheeled into the actors the recording room. She's such a great spirit that I think she loves it. She has mentioned publicly that she wants to retire after One Piece from voice acting, and she's currently on a morning TV show right now, a morning serial drama on NHK, which oddly enough, Hirata's son has also appeared on. Like, it's so it's like, who's gonna show up next in this TV show? But the point is, she's keeping very busy, and I think she's very happy with what she's doing right now. Also, realistically, I would expect this remake series to be similar to the JoJo adaptation in that it's on super speed.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see multiple, like you might get through like half a volume in an episode, depending on the volume, depending on the content. Yeah. But like, I don't think they're going to take their time with this one.
Yeah, there's really no reason for them to include the fat, so to speak.
Sorry, Apis fans and Goat Island fans. I don't think. Yeah.
It is really tricky because, yes, and like even beyond the money situation which you touched upon, it is like it's unthinkable, the idea that they would just say, all right, we're going to do a new series with a different studio and just completely shut out, like, all right, completely new cast, none of the original actors are involved at all. That is like completely unthinkable, I think, for the audience, and for just for knowing how Japan works in general. Like, people, I know that fans threw a shit fit when the Simpsons movie had a different dub cast than the Japanese TV show. And that was like we're going to make a petition, we're going to sign all this stuff because we need the real voice actors. So like
Stephen, I'm sorry. All 5 people who saw it in Japan were extremely upset.
Yeah, I know how that sounds. But I'm just saying certain things are universal, and yeah, like the idea that you could do this without, at the very minimum, some kind of a baton passing is unthinkable. So, if it is something like Mayumi Tanaka is the narrator, so you get those you get the feels of like, oh yeah, that's the voice of One Piece here. And if they were to have a separate cast doing, the main Straw Hats and whatever, something like that, where Mayumi Tanaka is still involved, you still hear her voice, would do a huge amount to make that palatable to, particularly to the Japanese audience, I think.
Yep. I don't think you could do it otherwise, just flat out.
Yeah.
It's just not how things work in Japan. And Oda certainly isn't going to do him dirty like that. Not after all of these years of dedication and work.
Yes. The parties and the camaraderie and all of the relationship that is built up, it doesn't just get shunted to the side. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see. It certainly is a challenge that they have to figure out, but I don't think they would have gone ahead with it and at the very least put together a teaser and all this other stuff with the big announcement if they didn't have a plan for how they were going to do that. Next question here is from Big Mike. Hey, OPP, in the last chapter, it said the water level rose by 1 meter. How much is that? I am an American, and I don't believe in the metric system. Steven, can you get Viz to use normal units of measurement in the American translations, or at least add a translation note to convert the units of measurement? I don't like having to Google how many rods a meter is or how many liters are in a hogshead. Yeah, I don't know if I ever actually had like a conversation about like, do we have to change measurements to the imperial from metric. So in this case, I was just like, oh well, I'll just put it in meters. I think the fact that it's like 1 meter, 5 meters, like when it's very basic amounts like that, I think it's easy enough to remember. So I didn't have any doubts about using 1 meter in the English translation there.
You know what kills me is reading something like Game of Thrones, and they'll be like, "It's 2 miles out," and I'll just be like, okay.
Well, I mean, they do. The imperial measurements were Imperial England, so I think there's some room for like that's one of the countries where at least people will understand what you're talking about. But I do get where you're coming from with that.
Here's one against, and I say this as someone who lives with centigrade and meters, mm-hmm. and actually we were just in the States back in Hawaii, right? Mm-hmm. Harka was doing the navigation since the car navigation didn't work, and she's like, "It's in 2 miles." I'm like, I have no idea how long that is anymore.
Oh,
I'm
no.
Sorry. But what killed me, what was it? She was like, "It's 1,000 feet," and I was like, I got nothing. I got no concept of feet. Sorry. Besides my own foot. And but what was the other? Is one against would be, what if there's some sort of like joke or gag or some kind of point that's related to the number of kilometers or meters or temperature something is,
right?
That can be very messy, and that's why it's a little bit dangerous, because then if you've translated it, if you've converted it,
right,
then the fans will be all over you because you quote unquote messed up a important story point.
Yeah. Or fun trivia or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, it's I hear you, dude. I totally hear you. But it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
That is true.
It's really rough. And I mean that's translation. If we learn more about the world, then we can enjoy these kinds of things. I mean, the same thing with language. If you can read it in Japanese, then you can appreciate different aspects of the story. I'm not trying to say, too bad, learn Japanese, but at the same time, not you necessarily, who sent the question, but like, it's not such a simple, because I'm pretty sure this was a joke question too.
Yes, yeah.
But it is difficult. So try, if you can understand the fact that it's difficult, then I think you can be a little bit more accepting of some of these things, and not you specifically, dear question asker.
Let's be thankful that there is not an official Barry to like US dollar conversion, because of that scintillating chapter where we all found out what Shanks and Blackbeard and Whitebeard's bounties were in exact detail. All of that wonderful numerology wordplay would have been lost forever.
Yes.
Okay. Last one on Patreon on the disc piece here is from Wisdom Pythagoras. It says, "Hello, Stephen and Greg. What are your thoughts on the status of Big Mom and Kaido? Do you think they're actually dead, or are you like me and are holding out hope for their return in some capacity in true Oda fashion?" Thanks, SGS.
You want to go first?
I
feel like I've talked about this to death.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we had made our thoughts clear previously, but it has been a while. Especially with the way that he left it, I don't think there's any way that that's just the end of Big Mom and Kaido's story. There's too much to be resolved, and and he specifically gave us a bit of a mechanism for bringing them back out, which is the idea that the walls of Wano need to fall somehow, and that that may unleash Pluton, and it may involve them bursting out of the magma, doing some kind of reverse Terminator thing. That would be pretty awesome to see, and I would like to see something like that, because I don't think we're done with them.
And I specifically feel that Mom, or at the very least her family, has a role to play in Elbaf somehow.
Yes. Yeah, Kaido is, he may not have as much unfinished business, but Mom definitely does, Big Mom.
Kaido's going to have a turn, because, God, people are going to kill me for this one. Kaido he's a bad dude. He treats people poorly. He treats his own people poorly. But there is how can I put this? There is a attractive pirate quality to him that suggests that he's not a mean person just to be a mean person. He is the way he is, which is to say he's a fully fleshed out character. Yeah. Would we have loved seeing Buggy and cheering for Buggy the way we are now back, in Orange Town? No, we thought he was amusing, but we were like, this guy's a complete, D-bag. We're not going to be cheering for him. We don't want him to be a warlord. Are you kidding me? And the more you learn about some of these characters, the more sides you see of them, and that they are people who live inside Oda's brain. You can get to appreciate them a little bit more. Wapol is, interestingly enough, Oda has never given him some kind of redemption. Like, we find him comical in the same way we did Buggy. But you're not like rooting for the guy. You're like, maybe I don't want him to be murdered, but like, I don't want him to get away with the stuff that he's getting away with. Kaido, it's the same for Kaido, in that he is the way he is because of some horrific trauma, probably as a child, because of, his size, much like Mom, like her size. Those two actually share that. And also because of whatever it was that Rox subjected him to. Yes. Yeah. There is an awful betrayal, and those poor people are horrifically scarred because of it. And when push comes to shove, I think that Kaido will probably side himself with Luffy. There's going to be a point where we actually, believe it or not, root for Kaido to perform one or another task. That will result in the victory of our heroes. Yeah, you can see the portrait of him kind of lurking underneath the exterior, where he is someone who is kind of looking for something to believe in, something truly heroic. Good, and very good, yes. Yeah. And he wanted to be that. Right. Yes, that by whatever means. This all that we saw him doing was his kind of scarred and damaged, either his attempt or like the remnants, the aftermath of his failed attempt to do that, and just saying, well, fuck it, like, I'm just going to take over the world then, and just go out in a blaze of glory or whatever. So yeah, I think there's something to work with there for sure. All right. We do have a few more questions here on Twitter, where we use the I saw one this morning. I was like, oh my God. It's like 10. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's like the one that's like 10 questions. Yeah. I don't think we'll be getting to that one necessarily, but we'll go through the other ones and we'll see how we feel. Okay. All right. So this is on Twitter as usual. Zach often sets up a Twitter thread for this, or you can just use the hashtag SGS Sensei. No punctuation there. First one I'll read here is from
Connor Tierney 57, who says, hello, SGS Sensei. There's been a theory flying around that if Luffy consumes the Mother Flame, he could become a more complete and powered-up version of Nika, less restricted by his time limit in the form. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. So I guess my first question, just given the almost mythological connotations of the Mother Flame, is, does this immediately set off your like, oh no, like I don't want Luffy to become a god sensors?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's like saying I want Goku to go Super Saiyan 5. It's a very shonen type idea. Like, if he eats the super strong thing, then does he become super strong? Probably by shonen law. But I don't know. Like, I don't want it to be that simple. I mean, Luffy already ate something and then got the potential to be super awesome. I don't know if I want him to do it again. Since we are talking, Shonen Jump, you got Doryoku, Yujo, and Shori. You got to put that Doryoku in. You got to put that effort in. It's not just eating it. It's just. Also, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, but it wouldn't be satisfying for me.
Yeah, and I wonder too if that like violates some certain character law of Luffy's, that like he likes food. Like, is he going to want to eat a flame? Does that hit his like, oh, this looks like a good thing for me to eat? Because it doesn't sound like it. That doesn't strike me as a Luffy thing to do. Obviously, he could put him in that situation, but on the face of it, there's a certain level of absurdity to that notion that I find a little hard to reconcile.
I think that, and I've posited this before, Luffy needs to become the Mother Flame. He needs to be it. What Vegapunk was looking for in terms of fire,
he needs to embody
and
it.
I've definitely addressed this on the podcast before. It needs to be Luffy. Luffy needs to be the source. And he's already doing it, isn't he? He is.
Right.
He's fuck yeah, he is. He's already called up the robot, the construct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think now I'm not to co-opt anyone else's answer. I think that some of this theory is because, what is it? The legend of Hanuman, which is the monkey god, is that he ate the sun, or ate a part of the sun or something like that. So that may be where that idea comes from.
Interesting.
Which is,
okay.
I mean, that's something, yeah.
Sure, but maybe that's the origin of that in the first place, right?
Right.
Like maybe that's how Joy Boy got to be Joy Boy, and that I would be totally fine with. Cool. Luffy, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be like, so One Piece has come to this. That's kind of how it would be.
Yeah. There's a certain, bear with me with this comparison. So if you've ever seen the movie Whiplash about jazz drumming, the one with TK Simmons, J.K. Simmons, yeah, where he plays the abusive band leader. So Miles Teller is the main character, and the whole movie is about him trying to achieve this seemingly impossible expectation to be a drummer. And then the climax of the movie is that he kind of basically crashes the performance and basically forces his way into playing, and then finally sort of fulfills J.K. Simmons' mad demands of him. But in that performance, Paul Reiser, who is playing the kid's dad, is off to the side of the stage. And so, there's this very long, 5-minute solo sequence or whatever, and all this, dramatic stuff is happening. And there's this certain part where for 2 seconds, you see him, Paul Reiser is off on the side of the stage, and he's just kind of like peeking around the curtain at his son playing and he's just going, and his arms are flying around, and he's just absolutely wailing the shit out of these drums, and it's completely absurd. And Paul Reiser just has this look on his face like, oh my God, this kid is a monster. Like what has become of my son? And I feel like that's what I think of, is like that reaction of like, is this still the same person that I knew and loved? When I think of like, what if Luffy becomes, what if Luffy goes gear 12 and is like a being of, interdimensional, powers, and is the super god that created the universe, and all of this crazy stuff. Like at some point I'm like, this is not going to be Luffy anymore. So I don't want to cross that line for sure.
I have seen the future, Nami. Dr. Luffy.
Mm-hmm.
Not Dr. Manhattan. He's a...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't want Luffy to be Dr. Manhattan. Let's see. A few more questions here. G tweets at G says that has a question. What kept Vegapunk from building a seraphim body for his brain in a jar? And then includes a GIF of, like, this looks like Super Metroid, perhaps.
Do you want an annoying answer to this question?
Oh, what is it?
Do we know that he didn't?
Ooh. I mean, we probably would know by now, but like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this lab and the stuff it has in it. I mean, especially since the elders are not, looking for anything of that type. Mm-hmm. The stuff that he could have tucked away, even off island, is just it's infinite. If he wants to bring him back in any form, way, fashion, he absolutely can. Whether he does or not, and I think we've gone into this a little bit, is that yet again is another issue. Is would that be satisfying, since we're having such an extended parting with him? I don't know. Maybe for me, Shaka, because Shaka was like a shock death. Mm-hmm. That came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I would love to see Shaka again, but it is possible that one by one we say farewell to these Stellas, mm-hmm. and that's pretty much it for Vegapunk. Aside from Punk Records, I do have a hard time believing that when all is said and done, we won't have another avatar, so to speak, mm-hmm. of Vegapunk. But for the time being, we may be saying farewell. So, but yeah, I don't know that we don't know that there is something in the waiting like that.
That's true. All right. So this question, we do have this is an interesting question. I don't know if I like the way it is phrased, but I think it is a valid thing to ask, and it's been a little while, at least since I talked about this. So I will quote it here. This is from Otaku Paradise Brad at @DubLoveOtaku, who says, is Yamato actually referred to as a male in the Japanese, or is it just somebody putting in their own agenda? And this is an interesting topic, and you may notice that, in the past when Yamato's story was kind of in flux and we were still learning more about it, I may have spoken about it differently, but in the past several years since the end of Wano, you may or may not have noticed, and I think it might be the same for you too, Greg, that like when I talk about Yamato, I actually avoid using any kind of gendered pronouns at all. Like I just often will say, oh, it's Yamato feels this way, Yamato does this and that. And part of the reason for that is that the information that is in the manga itself is conflicting or inconsistent. And so I don't think that there is a straightforward canonical answer, because we have seen in the manga, at least, Yamato has been in the in the little Oda boxes, the subtitles in the text has been referred to as the son of Kaido and as the daughter of Kaido. Now in the sort of supplemental material and all the stuff that surrounds the series, they are pretty much consistent in referring to Yamato as female. So that's referring to the Viva card, the story blurbs, and the previously on or whatever. They'll say like Yamato, the daughter of Kaido or whatever. And for that reason, because it's not my job to contradict the author, or at least the official text. Like when you buy the Viz volumes, in those summaries before the manga itself, that's what it says. It'll say the daughter of Kaido. But again, I'm not really going out of my way to use he or she, certainly not in the translation, because it is not really clear. And there's a certain level of specificity that requires the character of Yamato to actually state certain things and demand certain things that, it's just up to whether or not the author specifies that or addresses that in the text. And so because of that, I'm very delicate about how I do that. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? Well, I collect my thoughts about the next one.
Steven, I'm sorry for laughing, but it's hilarious that you said that, because that is exactly what I have been trying to do ever since the first conflicting piece of information came out.
Right.
That is hilarious to me. I have gone to, and I'm going to bring this around to this episode actually, and something funny that happened at the start of this episode. But I do not care what Yamato quote unquote is or isn't. I always at all times want to refer to Yamato as Yamato refers to Yamato, and as the author or the materials refer to Yamato. There are people who very strongly want Yamato to be referred to as he, and there are people who very strongly want to refer to Yamato as she. And I do not care strongly one way or the other. I care only about what Yamato wants to be. I just want to respect the character. And to this end, the character has, in many respects, gone back and forth. And I think I described it on this very SGS one time. I think I said, Yamato is very similar to Luffy in kind of the approach to whether they are he or she is. Like, if you say like Yamato is like, so you're Oden, yes, but Oden was a guy, yes, but you're a girl, yes, but Oden was a guy, yes, so you're a guy, yes.
That's pretty much kind of how the manga has positioned it. Yeah. And in that respect, that is why I think there was very early on when it was very strong with the Bokuko kind of stuff, and like the son of Kaido. At that point, I would refer to Yamato as he, because that seemed to be what the character wanted. However, as things started to go a slightly different, and actually the World Top 100 ranking also had a little bit to do with this too, because I had this whole thing about it, like we talked about, and how it was interesting in different communities around the world, and it was some really like deep talk, and they cut it all in favor of the fucking furries comment, which they'll never let me live down. Yes,
which is like, Yeah, which is like, and I think it's hilarious. I think there's some people out there who try to like mock me because of it, and like, cool, do whatever you like, folks. But like, I'm in on it too. I think it's hilarious that they left that in and they chose all things, because I was fighting against it. I was like, you guys, you're real. I don't know if you want to touch on this. Because there are people who are going to misconstruct it. You have, I'm not saying anything against furries. I'm saying against the people who have stuff against it, and also it is a touchy subject. And I was like, I don't really know if you want to touch this. And they're like, oh, absolutely, yeah, this is so interesting. We didn't know that its culture existed. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's in there, but also in there is this talk about Yamato that's in there as well, and that was completely cut because they didn't want to touch it. And this is some people don't know what I'm referring to. World Top 100. There was a ranking of the One Piece characters several years back, and we did a YouTube spot for it, and that was involved in that. Anyway, so at the start of this episode, we were talking about Yamato, and it has been a long time. Well, it's I'm not in the rhythm of doing the SGS, first of all. Second of all, it's been a very long time since I've talked anything about Yamato. And if you noticed, or if you recall, or if you're paying close attention to this stuff, at the start, I think I referred to Yamato just offhandedly, completely offhandedly, as like, and he's going to be going around the island doing this and this. And then immediately as that came out of my mouth, inside my head, I was just like, fuck! Because I've been super careful to try to refer to Yamato as simply Yamato.
Right.
I am not of an opinion that it needs to be this or it needs to be that. What it needs to be and what it should be is what Yamato wants to be referred to as, and what the author refers to Yamato as. And other than that, I don't care. I quote unquote, I'm not going to say I do have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. I respect the character and I respect the author. And therefore, whatever Yamato wants to be is whatever Yamato I will call. And that is why, as possible, when I'm clear thinking, I simply try to, as Steven suggested, use Yamato. It's that simple for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously the character narrative of Yamato, like the way that the character is framed, and Yamato's struggle and interest, it is a quote unquote trans narrative, where it is a character who is going against gender type or what have you, and Yamato has lots of masculine aspects and is determined to be seen as similar to Oden, and all of that stuff. And I think so of course it makes perfect sense that many people accept Yamato that way, as representing that type of character, but at the same time, like, if there is so much counterbalancing weight that is pulling in the opposite direction, not to say that it is denying that aspect of Yamato's character, but if like the story itself, or at least the outward trappings that I mentioned, the story summaries and the viewer cards and all of those things continue to be consistent in the other direction, it creates a tension there. And again, like, as long as that tension exists and as long as that is consistent, certainly in my capacity as the translator, as a person who is most directly responsible for representing that in English, it's really hard to ignore a tension like that. I have to address it somehow. Like, I have to manage it in a certain way. And, obviously, like Greg said, Yamato has not really been in the story for a couple of years now, so it hasn't really come up. But, there's a reason why I'm not being way more explicit about that one way or the other, simply because of this. And I don't want to as this person says, somebody putting in their own agenda. That's the last thing I want to do. Like, I don't want to have an outsized effect on what the end of text is. Like, it should reflect what Oda did, or what Oda is saying, or what Oda is creating, and
what he's being is ambiguous.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if that is unacceptable to people, if it's not enough in one direction or another, then so be it. That is your issue with Oda, and
with Oda. That's with Oda.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether that's a good thing or bad thing, or interesting or boring, is entirely up to you. I'm not, going to dictate how you should think about that. But that's for off the top of my head here, in this discussion, that's about as definitive as I can be about, kind of how my stance towards working with the material is. And we will see if that comes back into focus more later on in the story, or if we pretty much get this cover story and then hear very little more about it. I don't know. It remains to be seen. All right, Greg. We have hit just about the 2-hour mark here. You mentioned that there was this guy who has like 8 different questions, and they're all very open-ended and would probably have like a 30-minute answer each. So I don't know if you have any appetite in touching that right now.
Right now, no.
No.
Do I have an appetite in touching it? Yes. In fact, why don't we just make that our next episode? Why don't we just call it, is it B? Is it from?
B at Champagne Bala has, a bunch of questions.
So that'll be our next episode. The B at Champagne Bala episode.
Okay. We'll see. We'll get to at least one of them, I'm sure. All right. So yeah, I think we've covered this episode in plenty of conversation. So why don't we take one more break and round it out?
Okay.
Hey, buddy. Good boy. All right. This has been the One Piece Podcast, episode 818 for the week of Monday, May 20th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the SGS. Just me and Greg taking your questions, talking about the manga, and trying to figure out Oda's worldview. It's not easy, but someone's got to do it. Greg, thank you so much for another couple hours of your time.
Thank you. And thanks, Simba.
Yeah. Simba has no choice in the matter, but he's hanging in there. What's going on with you? Where can people find you? Anything new going on?
You can find me in the reaches of any deli where they call it a pork roll, not a Taylor ham.
Is this a regional thing?
It's a regional thing. So
okay.
If you're from New Jersey, you're laughing now, or you're angry at me. You can find me on Twitter at Ochimusha108. That's Ochimusha108.
Nice. Hey, I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
Very good. All right, and you can find me on Blue Sky at stephenpaul.bsky.social. Still reading my my One Piece read through. I am in the middle of Enies Lobby now, which is fun. Real good stuff. Some might say the last like truly great fights in the series. I don't know if that's fair or not, but certainly worth a you
Agree. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you need a cough drop. We've been talking for too long. You can check out my observations there. Of course, always read One Piece, Akane Banashi, Showa Shoten. Those are all on the Viz or MangaPlus apps. I recommend them all, of course. And for the podcasts, well, if you're listening to this, you already know where to find us, I presume. So yeah, One Piece Podcast on Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, wherever, Apple Music, wherever you happen to listen to us. Please continue to do so. Subscribe to our Patreon if you are interested for lots of cool alternate art sketches from Steve and the other amazing artists that we have on our crew, and all of the alternate episode titles and things that we come up with and discard before we get our final one. It's always a fun thing to check out. And aside from that, I think just tune in next week. We should be back with the regular episode of the manga, with the manga recap, I should say. And who is our guest? Let me just check that out real quick. I believe we are going to have Anthony Bowling and Corinne. That is the former dub engineer, producer for Crunchyroll, and the voice of Momonosuke. They will be returning to the podcast next week, episode 819, where we will have the return of the manga. So look forward to that. But for now, my name is Steven.
My name is Greg.
And there's Simba.